Hey everyone, my name is Darren Silver and hold the mythical pillar here at the Sacred Sons Convergence. And we'll be discussing rewilding the masculine in the online convergence. And I want to share a little bit of, what brought me to this path when I was 20 years old. So about 17, 18 years ago. I went and studied with a man named Tom Brown Jr. in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. And it's a wilderness survival school. But that's a very reduced way of talking about what is taught at that school. It really teaches us how to become connected with the earth in a physical way, emotional way, and spiritual. And it was that first course. It was the first time that I felt like I was with my people. I was with people that heard the same drum as I did. And I learned an incredible amount of skills, physical skills, fire by friction, basket making, flint knapping, primitive shelter, scout shelter. And then towards the end of the week, Tom went into the spiritual teachings and he asked us, what is your vision? And are you willing to give up your dreams to follow a vision? It still reverberates inside my body, the power and the way that he asked that question. And that set me on a path to really discover, what is my vision? What am I willing to devote myself to? And what's the difference between a vision and a dream? A dream, how I've interpreted how Tom Brown asked that, is something that only serves me. Whereas a vision is something that I give to my people, something that I cultivate and give. And so since that day that I began to be in search of vision, it's not quite a destination. It's a path full of devotion. And I firmly believe that everyone came into this world with a vision, with a particular gift, with a genius. And so I'm most interested in everyone finding what their vision is, what their unique gift is. That quality, that devotion, that if you don't do it and bring it to the world, it simply will not happen. And so sometimes it requires a mythical consciousness to approach something like vision. It requires a deep understanding of relationship that extends beyond the more than human realm. So what I hold here is we go into ceremony space, we go into ritual. Specifically, we go into sweat lodge in a very simple way where men get to come together and pray. As the Australian Aboriginals say in their initiations, what one has learned is that they're not quite as important as what they're being invited to participate in. And that's the process of initiation. That's the process, to me, of rewilding the masculine, is connecting to the greater world, the great mother's world. And we grow up in a place, in a society, in a so-called culture that doesn't know how to be in relationship with the places that we live, with the earth. I mean, what wood in your area is best to make a fire by friction? What plants are medicinal? What are edible? Which way does the wind typically come from? What trees are more likely to get struck by lightning, and where? These are some questions I offer to you to consider. What are the first birds to come in spring? What do their songs sound like? It's an old understanding that the masculine is informed by culture and the feminine is informed by nature. And so the process of initiation was becoming a caretaker of culture. What does that look like for us today? Looks like getting a driver's license, graduating high school, graduating college. They prepare us for the culture at hand, but it's heartbreaking and true that the culture that we have is holding an incredible amnesia to the places where we live. And so a true culture is actually the mirroring and the reflection of the place in which a people live. And the men were given that responsibility to uphold culture, to learn about culture. And so part of rewilding the masculine is planting this seed and this question of what is a genuine culture and how can we begin to cultivate it? How can we begin to tune our ear to the natural world and live in a way that is a reflection of the natural world, of the earth, of nature? It's hard to even use that language of nature because in a lot of intact cultures, there wasn't that sense of separation. It didn't exist. Everything was the wild, breathing earth. So I'm most interested in how we can bring that back, how we can connect in that way. So over the years of entering into ritual space, doing vision quests, spending extended periods of time in the wilderness, guiding wilderness therapy, all these transformational experiences that took place in nature, they also include different workshops that I've done that bring a lot of transformation. The hardest part is the return. The hardest part is how do I bring home what I just discovered? How do I bring my certain gift into this world? And that's where myth has come in and helped me. Myth has helped me to understand the process of transformation, to set a context of which I can see my own transformation. With youth, it's an incredible indirect way of bringing them to consider their own interior, because it's not all about them. There's characters that they can identify with, and the characters sing out inside of them what they want to. So one of the stories I'll share just a little bit that I worked with in my master's, it's a Russian mythology. Once upon a time, there was a young lad, a young man, and he was alone in the forest riding a horse. He had his bow strapped across his back. He had leather sacks full of food, full of medicine, and the sun was coming up, and shafts of light came through the forest, and he came to a bend, and up ahead he could see something in the path. It was shimmering like sunrise and sunset. It was deeply compelling. Something inside of him was drawn towards whatever laid in his path. And he rode up horse, and he saw that it was a feather of the firebird. The firebird, one way you can talk about the firebird, is a guardian of a threshold. And anytime you or I step into a deep transformational process, there is always guardians at the threshold. Some ask us to give something. They ask something of us. Some bless us. Some are those incredible distractions that say, no, you can't do it. You shouldn't do it. You're not strong enough. So the firebird represents that. Guardian of the threshold. The guardians of the threshold. And here was her feather. And so the young lad gets off his horse and he goes down to pick up this feather. And his horse speaks. Wait, a horse can speak? Who's his horse? And the horse says this: if you pick up that feather, you will come to know the meaning of trouble and the meaning of fear. Where are the times that you have picked up the feather? Many times. Maybe trouble and fear are a valuable thing to enter into. So the young lad thinks to himself, well, it's probably a good idea I don't pick up the feather. But he thinks, well, maybe if I bring it to the King. I won't have to know trouble or fear. I'll just be like a messenger of sorts. And he picks up that feather and he gets on his horse and he rides towards the King. At some point in our lives, we pick up that feather. We pick up the one that is our vision, that is our path, that is so compelling it is irresistible. Sometimes we pick up the feather that's a bad habit. Mythology doesn't have answers. It doesn't have one meaning. It has many, many questions that sometimes bring us to understanding and knowing and responsibility. So in this rewilding the masculine, in this time that we're going to spend together, we're going to explore those holy questions. We're going to explore what it means to be called. Be called towards something. And we'll continue to work that and other stories. Stories of the soul. Stories that bring us into the depths. So what are the consequences of not following your calling? What are the consequences of living a life that is just about fulfilling your dreams and not your vision? Now, I know the impact of that on my life. But really, what is the impact for you? What I've seen is a life of mediocrity, a life of self-serving ideals, a life that is more about taking and extracting than giving, than really truly giving. And in the absence of such initiations, in the absence of doing that deep soul work of remembering what it's like to belong, a consequence is our planet is suffering greatly. There are so many men in positions of power that have no idea how to serve the Great Mother Earth, that compete against each other, that fight endlessly, selfishly. We need to unwind that. The invitation I have is that we unwind that trauma of not being able to experience those deep threshold moments that bring us into deep participation with the whole of life. And it's there that we find our sword, that our sword is sharpened. It's there that the warrior in us is called to make adventures and find the edges. It's there that the magic within us can bless and touch another, and that we can truly love. I was told a story some time ago that Geronimo, with his band of warriors that evaded the US Army for about a decade, wouldn't bring a warrior into his small band unless he had wept with them, unless they had wept together. When men come together and share their tears, they're also sharing everything that they love, everything that's worth protecting, that's worth fighting for, that's worth standing for, worth waking up in the morning for. And so what happens in doing ritual together, doing ceremony, coming to convergence, sharing what's in our heart, is we build trust. We heal this old wound. And we begin to heal together. So as I mentioned, my path began with a very powerful teacher named Tom Brown that continues to this day. It taught me how to connect with the earth in a different way, how to know what it feels like when I'm with people that see me and I see them. It gave me powerful skills of connection. That brought me down an incredible path of healing and understanding of more questions of what it is to belong, what is a true culture, What's this dance responsibility that us humans have? That led me to mythology and guiding other men to, as Boyd Varty would say, to follow the track of their own lives. This is the thing, is if men don't follow their vision, then they don't know what it's like to be generous. They don't know what it's like to give, to truly give, and to participate in life more fully. I invite you, I look forward to spending time with you men on this online convergence, dropping in deeply to the holy questions, following the river, following the track of all of our lives, and up-leveling just a little bit, growing our roots down just a little bit. It's an honor. I'm grateful to be here with you all.